time to get tactical, lads. Today we have 3, maybe more, archetypes for the Tactical Brigade, the brigade that's in question most of the time for our orc community as to how can I really run this. Now, we will have at least 3 competitive versions of this, and this did take me for a little bit of a spin as the new missions were released. So some things have changed. We won't dive too deep into that today, but it did impact the list to a small degree. So with that being said, I will mention the war gear. Of course, it's to your variation and preferences, but I will reference what I would suggest you would use, how you would use these units and these archetypes themselves. And if you would like a deeper dive into that, you can check out the video we did when we broke down all the units in these detachments that we'll be covering. So any combos you might not be familiar with or you don't think I elaborate enough on, you can check those out. So of course, another thing to check out is our sponsor, the Baron of Dice. They make high quality custom dice. If you enjoy our content and want to show some love, check out the Baron of Dice custom dice, including WAAAGH Tactics official dice. To support us, use our discount code in the description for 5% off because nobody likes taxes. And of course, shout out to Forgefire Gaming. They offer competitive terrain sets that I use at home that comes pre-painted with slotted acrylic bases, allowing for easy building removal and measuring and alignment with it itself. Check it out in the description and check out our paint competition. This month we have the Stompa, so you can get a set of those WAAAGH Tactic dice. So let's start with our first archetype that actually I had a bit of fun with. This is a archetype that I personally prefer and I think would maybe go a little bit better into what we have going forward with the changes that have been happening with the new missions. A little bit more MSUE, but quite character heavy. So we call this boss tactics. So let's look into some of these units real quick. And shout out to the chat. Whoa, to the live chat, of course, with Tiger Melts, Shad's After in the Dark, Slapshot, J Hugh, and then Paul for becoming a channel member. Check out the new videos in the members because we actually came out with another one of those videos and we'll be doing more live. So if this comment section is this live chat is nice and popping off, I'll go live after this too. Shout out to Tooth Snatcher. Whoa, so check those videos out. Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you very much to these boss tactics. So starting off this tactics is the Big Mac. Yeah, you people were surprised with the Big Mac. Then we move. I'll talk about that in a little bit, who he goes with. But we have the Big Mac and Mega Armor as the Warlord with the Mech Captain Enhancement. Of course, he is the reason you're playing this detachment for more reasons than not. Then we have 2 Big Macs with Shock Attack Gun. Pretty staple in this detachment. You're going to see a lot of those through the videos we go over, but it makes sense as this is a combined arms detachment, a little bit more heavy on the shooting aspect of it. And this actually has the keywords that allow you to give orders. But what we also have for that combined arms factor is triple war bosses. Now we have other variations of combined arms, but this is the one I prefer because I'm this kind of git. So we have 3 war bosses on there. Of course, they're giving their own tactics out. 2 units of 5 Storm Boys. You can cut that down by 1 if you choose to. A lot of the time people are able to get away with at least 1 of these. A lot of the time this is more for just scoring early game, taking up space around the table, securing position and something like search and destroy very quickly, throwing a grenade off when you need to, because everybody else had advanced that turn, for example. So Storm Boys are just in there, not necessarily to always be in deep strike, more of a utility piece. So keep that in mind. 4 trucks on this list. This is pretty common for our orc list to be pretty transport heavy, but we have a unit of Breaker Boys. I think very obvious that our meta is very 3 wound heavy, very anti-armor heavy, demons, whatever it may be. The fact that you have access to sustain in this attachment means the Breaker Boys on that WAAAGH turn can absolutely punch up when they're guided by a war boss. If they have to punch into elite infantry, they can get +1 strength in that case as well. And I do think the +1 to hit matters. If you're -1 to hit the Breaker Boys, it's absolutely devastating. If you're going into a brick, maybe 2 wound infantry that gets in your way, but you have to get into them, the war boss helps offset to a certain degree. Of course, we have the 10 flash kits to go alongside the Big Mac and Mega Armor. A lot of the time people get a little too aggressive with this, maybe trying to peek a corner and use firing deck a little too earlier in the game, getting disembarked and getting chipped away. I advise that you do wait to expose this at least until the WAAAGH turn, as it's quite a valuable unit in its combined arms aspect. And it usually catches people off guard. A little more durable than you expect. Do not be hesitant to just give yourself stealth, and do not give yourself +1 to hit when shooting. A lot of the time you might overkill in that case, and then you are, kind of susceptible to being shot back at too much. So Certain matchups, stealth may be better to use. Then 2 units of small Gretchen. I personally like to bring at least 2 units of Gretchen. So versatile. Check them out if you haven't checked out the video on how I said how to use the Gretchen. But you can maybe get away with 1. I personally like 2 to screen my deployment zones, go early to try to flip objective, be ready to do little secondaries. And as we've seen some of these cards, for example, where it tells you to have more units in no man's land. A Gretchen unit being able to walk out into no man's land just quickly for you might be a little nicer as well. Then we move on to the WAAAGHs, a little bit of a different pick here. A lot of the time you do see just 3 tank buster units, which is totally valid. Some people simply don't have 3 tank busters unit. Maybe you got a couple of these kits. You want to bring some breakers instead, but it was intentional for the WAAAGHs. The WAAAGHs can go with the Big Mac with shock attack gun. I do personally like that. I think if you're going to have the Big Mac, in this case, he would go better with the tank busters. He can take advantage of their pulsar rocket. But as for the WAAAGHs with the shock attack gun, this is for the range aspect. This is for coming in from reserves and actually being able to get long lines of fire on certain GW terrains, as well as if you do get within 24, you get a really good, respectable volume. If they're on an objectives, you're re-rolling with 24 def cannon shots, and then you're giving that unit +1 to hit, so it's hitting on 5s. This is just to put a lot of saves on the different units that are be coming out in the meta. If you're going to maybe even seeing these units like ACDC on there, if in this case you have knobs or you have flash kits and Luda bricks that can all kind of help chip these units down, it's quite helpful. You don't really want to not have something that has volume at range on the list, even though tank busters themselves are quite valid. Ludas, I think, are also quite cheap for their points. So in this case, I brought Ludas, a little bit different. Of course, we know what you can bring 3 redundancy of if you want to, but we have 2 units of knobs. Yes, I still like me some knobs. Of course, they get their -1 to wound. Then they're going to have their 5-up invul on the wall, and they're going to be able to give themselves stealth. If you're fighting outside of the wall, you get yourself up to strength 10. Let's say you're trying to fight a plague drone and you need to get that strength 10. It's not necessarily the wall turn. Well, you can give yourself that +1 strength to really offset that. Maybe a little bit of overkill if you're led by a war boss, which leads to other tactics, of course, if you don't have a war boss in this case, that you could consider, of course, in this detachment as well. But in this case, I do like the war boss for that durability aspect and the orders giving reroll charges, whatever it may be when time counts. Small units fits inside of trucks for the SWAT teams potential, and then of course the 2 units of tank busters already spoke about, plus the war bikers. I absolutely have been loving my war bikers recently. They've just been really setting the difference. Of course, we know the Storm Boys have their value for their speed, for their scoring, easy mobility around the field, but the Warbikers' ability to skirmish, to have a little bit more durability, they take orders quite well with the fact that they can take stealth or +1 strength. If you have in this case, in this matchup, we don't have the characters for that, but we will be showing lists that do. But the Warbikers themselves, I think, are something that can run out, put a little bit more OC on objective, not automatically deleted by any lame flamer Overwatch, not necessarily scared of 5-man units of intercessors, for example, and such. So Warbikers have been making it on my list. I absolutely love this boss tactic style. A lot of small units to run around and constantly be missling, really threatening constant redundancy on the field for intermediate toughness to high toughness to vehicles. Remember, in this detachment, you still have access to lethal, so if you need your knobs to get lethal, they can get lethal in that stat as well. So this is where we're at for boss tactics. Check out the big video if you want to see more of how to actually utilize these units, but we move on to even more because we have several lists to cover. I know we started off saying there's 3, but I have a secret one at the end for you more fun gets, lighthearted gets, but I want to give you guys some fun too. So for the second list, we're still sticking to quite meta here, right? This is something that we've seen consistently, whether when Tactical Brigade was at its peak or even more DACA was at its peak, where if you're playing this combined arms version of orcs that is shooting in melee, a lot of times you're going to bring the beast boss. The meta really is just built in tune for the beast boss right now, where it is points value. He falls somewhere a little bit cheaper than a knob unit, and then he's also still cheaper than a breaker boy unit. But then he gives you different stats for dev wounds, so you don't have to worry about possibly whiffing on high toughness units. He gives you volume of punches and OC for his combos. So this is very prevalent, very common. Some people are even bringing 3 units of beast bosses in this. So don't be surprised if you see that going forward in the future. This is one of the most prevalent styles that we've seen, at least at the start of how this Tactical Brigade has been falling out. Now we have new missions. We never know where it's going to go, right, boys? But of course, we have the Big Mech and Mega Armor still with this Mech Captain enhancement. 3 big mechs with shock attack guns, of course, with the triple tank busters. This is because we're going full meta, full anti-tank, full anti-elite infantry, full destroying death guard. Then we move on to the mech. Solo baby mech, sometimes looked over. That we, even when I mentioned in the video itself of how to use this attachment, some people say that he's useless for what he is. Some people say he needs God Boomer to be used it. A lot of the time it's just the fact that you can use the truck to run around and peek corners and shoot people. You can actually deliver orders to something like Zagrod. So then we have Zagrod on this list. I'm very, very in love with Zod himself. As for how he really helps you in your combined arms attachment armies or even docket attachments, where you need to keep the enemy a little bit arms distance length, you need more value out of the wall itself. And a unit that really just lives off the wall and makes it really worth it would be Zod, when he can fall back in charge or give himself more OC. But a lot of the time you do want to give him an order to really like stack up on that annoyance of him. So giving him stealth is really, really freaking annoying. It really sets the enemy up for failure a lot of the time. If it's not a matchup where they're going to shoot, then you might have to assure a reroll charge so you can get off faster, maybe give another +1 strength. There's options here, though, is the point. But the mech allows you to, 1, do little baby secondaries, 2, give orders to little skirmish units earlier and around the game, and then Zagrod himself. So we have 4 trucks because we're still truck heavy. In this case, you're going to put both the Snaggas most likely in a truck each. Then you're going to put the flashgate unit in the truck, and then you're going to take one of the tank buster units to put in the truck, and then 2 of the tank buster units with the shock attack guns are going to go in reserve. Now, there's totally a chance that matchup dependent, you totally keep a snag on the table. That's fine. That was just a general consensus of how you would use this. There is only 1 5-man unit Storm Boys on this list. Still the same advice that I gave earlier. Doesn't always have to go into reserve. Doesn't always have to just be static on the table. He can be used as a sacrifice, as a reserve denial, as a grenade thrower. So be advised that he's great. We do have 5 flash kits on the list. I like flash kits. I find them much more valuable than something like a burner boy, where a burner boy kind of just falls over for his wound count, but they still have their place too. So up to you based off what you own. Some people simply don't have 15 flash kits. That's cool. But I have flash kits on here as I like them for this skirmish. Now, let's say you did want the mech to give orders to the flash kits. Just keep in mind that even if they're in different transports, they can disembark simultaneously as long as the mech is within 6 inches, and then he can yell an order out to them. And then the flash kits can carry on with, you know, shoot someone with maybe +1 to hit, for example. So even if he stays hidden or in lone op or behind a wall, he can still give them an order, even if they're obviously not necessarily in the same transport as each other, but that's how you can get it off. There are war bikers on the list, again, so that he can give orders to those white breakers if he wants to earlier in the game. If you want to find points for God Boomer, that's totally cool. Some people think that they'd rather just utilize their movement. So that's the combined arms snagga detachment. Pretty straightforward. A lot of threats. You even have a good amount of OC here between all the grots and all the actual snagga boys. So I actually really like where it goes. Snaggas themselves getting up to strength 6. So you can punch away big breaks of T3 models. Let's say you're going into Astra Militarum and they have one of those big breaks of Deathcore Krieg with the Feel No Pain. We're getting crumped by snagga boys, being able to get wounded on 2s even outside of the wall to really keep picking them up even when they come back on the table would be great. So shout out to the combined snagga tactics. Very popular, very cunning, and we will see more of this around, because anywhere that you have sustain, you're going to see some snaggas. And we move on. No, well, actually, before we move on, there were points left over. As you see, it's 1995 points. So you can find, you know, exceptions, like I said, for Big Gob, or that's really one of the only changes I'd make here. Yeah, probably. So then we'll move on to the next list, which is the 3rd list. We do have one more after this because I wanted to have something for everybody in this. Now we have Mobbing Kunnin. Now in this case, actually what I'd like to do here for that first list, just keep in mind those snobs should have power claws. I don't know why I didn't say that, but just keep in mind. And for my looters, I like custom mega blasters. Sorry, just wanted to keep that going. I was too excited. And I will answer questions at the end of the video. Don't worry about that, you guys. I see you, chat. Then we move on to the 3rd list. Now, this 3rd list is a little bit in question to some degree, and controversial is probably the word I'm looking for. As we know, Death Guard's coming on the menu and coming into the play. The missions have changed a little bit in themselves. Some people still like this style of archetype, though, and I think it has play in certain matchups. I mean, metas and itself, too. So let's start with this, Mobbing Kunnin. As the name implies, we actually do have mobs here. Starting off with the characters, we have a beast boss. Simply one, for the same reasons that we bring them in the last video list we covered, where having access to sustain is fantastic. Having access to lethal is great for either of those kind of big breaks punching around. Then we have a Big Mech with mega armor, again with Mech Captain, because that's why you're playing this detachment. 2 Big Mechs with shock attack guns for those 2 tank buster squads. Then we have a War Boss and a Weird Boy. Now, I intentionally didn't want to bring Zod on this just because we've been showing Zod a lot already. But of course, you can bring Zod if you don't feel comfortable with the War Boss and the Weird Boy because they don't move quick enough. That's totally fine. You can just find a way to substitute Zod. If you don't like the Weird Boy, you can use a way to substitute the Pain Boy by dropping one of those flash kits to a Burner Boy unit, and then you can bring a Pain Boy and use it as a reserve. But nonetheless, you are intentionally bringing more mobs on this list. Then we have a 5-man unit of Storm Boys, 3 trucks, a battle wagon, 1 big brick of flash kits, 2 5-man units of flash kits, a Gretchen unit, 2 tank busters, and a war biker unit. You do have God Boomer on the War Boss, and you do have Mork's Cunning on the Weird Boy for the redeploy. In this case, you are usually keeping your mob on the table. Of course, his enemy doesn't have any kind of reserves or anything like indirect, for example. You can use it to deploy the wagon and the mob quite aggressively, really imposing your will on the enemy, making it seem that you're going to kind of go aggressively at them and then reposition yourself to be somewhat safe. You have 2 units that are great SWAT teams here with the tank busters in themselves. And then you have a truck for the Mech Captain unit as well. If you do think that it's a little bit transport heavy and you don't have them, that's totally okay. You can drop a truck or 2 and start utilizing and maximizing your strategic reserves in that case, but it's totally fine. And this list is quite aggressive. I will say that whenever we've seen this list or I've used this list, it is really tight on units, but whenever you see big bricks of boys, you understand that it's all about just shutting down people's primary objective play and then really focusing down their killing assets. The fact that you have tank busters that are versatile into elite infantry and anti-tank means this list kind of goes a little further than you expect. The Beast Snagga boys themselves being a mob, having a built-in feel no pain, and then having access to stealth can be a little bit more imposing and durable than you would expect. So you have that, and you also maybe have the unit of boys. We'll say in your case you wanted a Pain Boy, maybe in that case that'd be fantastic. If it was a Zod, that'd be cool too. But in this case, I like the Weird Boy. The reason I like the Weird Boy is because I'm not paying for another battle wagon, and I can still position this, whether if you're closing the distance on me, I'm in position to run up and charge you, or if you're in a mid table, you're susceptible to my getting charged on the wall, or I can simply just jump this unit somewhere else, maybe even somewhere somewhat safe, call give myself an order for reroll charges and then attempt to make a long charge, or simply reposition myself so that I can attack later because the enemy's so hesitant to get anywhere because of my multitude of anti-tank weapons or my flash kits themselves. Then when it is go time, you can disembark all of these boy units with have actually some that feel no pains and whatnot, throw the wagons up the field, multiple trucks up the field, and then in that case you have a lot of DACA clapback for the units that are to come out and actually try to clear those mobs of boys you have. So Mob Cunning does take one of those gets that we've seen, for example, that's been running Warhorde, and they use 20 units of boys and then 2 wagons. It's a very similar setup of, WAAAGH is really about making contact with both of these bricks on 2 units near the middle or in the middle and the enemy's natural expansion, keeping your guns safe. For then when the enemy goes to respond and kill all of your mobs of units, then you get to come out and actually clear them up with your anti-tank, your flash kits unit for a little bit late game. And then I love all these little 5-man units of flash kits that exist on the field. Remember that if you do reposition with your Weird Boy and you haven't gotten an order yet, that means your War Boss with the God Boomer can yell an order at one of those 5-man units of flash kits or those war bikers that have disembarked from a different truck from somewhere else on the field, and then he can yell an order at them far away. So it ends up being really funny. We're just picking this 20-man unit up and throwing it. So it seems weird, but I've ran this and it totally had success, and I was having fun in the leagues with it. So that being said, just that's what I got to say about Mob Kunnin. Of course, we being creative gets on here. Now, last but certainly not least, the flavor list that I have for you gets, because I love y'all and I know you guys need it, is the I messed up the name. Tactics Kunnin. I messed up my own name that I was all excited for. Right, so this is the Tactic Kunnin, where we actually a Titanic Kunnin, where we actually brought a battle wagon and a Morkanaut. So let's break this down real quick. we have a beast boss with squad leader. Yes, you guys know that if you watch the other video, I'm not a huge fan of the kind of squad leader personally, but I understand how it can be played and what it implies. So I like it, what it provides as well. So we have the squad leader, beast boss. You can be quite aggressive with the commandos. The commandos will have all the guns. I like to have the breach ram, the power claw. I like to have the guns on it, the rockets, whatever it may be. I personally enjoy having that, so you can do it too. Then we have the mech captain with mega armor, 3 big mechs with shock attack guns, because even though I'm having some flavor, I'm still going to bring that super killy anti-tank weapon to make this combo really go off, and because it is all about aggression. So if you guys are playing on TTS or something and you don't like to play those long, prolonged games, don't worry. You're going to be really aggressive with this list. So 3 big mechs with shock attack gun. Then we have a basic baby mech with Mork's Kunnin so that he can redeploy. We'll talk about that in a second. We have Zagrot Wartsnaga because, like I said, if I'm playing any of these lists that have a lot of guns, I like to have just mobs of stuff that can just keep the enemy at bay, act as a big screen for all the rest of my guns, and to kind of push the enemy and have them fighting from their deployment zone and or using a lot of assets to try to kill what's come towards them, which allows my guns and my other units to really capitalize on that. Only 1 unit of 5 Storm Boys, followed by a battle wagon with 10 flash kits, the big brick of Gretchen, 2 minimum size units of Gretchen, because I felt like everything was full throttle aggressive. Therefore, I wanted to make sure I can reserve my backfield, and I wanted to have just a little bit of assets that I can maybe commit to move around the field or score secondaries. The 1 unit of Mandos that I mentioned, we do have 5 Ludas on this list because we ended up having about 55 points left over. I do like 5 Ludas so that they can kind of play more gun assistance and actually firepower on the field, or they can do secondaries and just chill around, but they're a small profile, don't really get in your way, and they can kind of be there for your mech to later give orders to if everybody else is kind of getting stuck in as well. So there can be some combined asset utilizing there. We do have the Morkanaut. Now, why did I pick the Morkanaut over the Gorkanaut? It's not because I really, really love its shooting assets necessarily that much. It's really about the fact that I like its 5-up invuln. If I'm deciding to use it, the 5-up invuln, it's because I want it to have more staying power on the turns that it does come out to play alongside the battle wagon. Now, if you want to make adjustments to this list and you don't want to bring the Morkanaut, you bring the Gorkanaut, that's totally, absolutely fine. It's not much a big difference. You can see the list is already 1995, so there's plenty of points to play with to kind of maneuver around that. But I do like to have the invuln a lot of the time for this kind of list. And then the 3 tank buses. Now, how this goes is I'm taking the big. Yeah, and you can see here I brought no trucks because I know it gets there tired of seeing trucks. So here's a no truck list. How this would work out is 3 tank buses go into the battle wagon. Then we have the Morkanaut has the flash kits embarked inside of it. Then in this case, you have multiple units that you can choose to redeploy with Mork's Kunnin. So you can be hyper aggressive with your Mandos, deploy them right across the enemy's deployment zone so they get no infiltrators. Then you can put Zod somewhere kind of really aggressive. You can have your Gork right on the your Mork/Gork right on the line and your battle wagon, make them expose their guns, then you pull their units out. Then they actually are kind of out of position in that case, or they're really worried about the fact that your tank busters are all inside that one wagon and they don't want to commit to popping it, and then they have multiple tanks in the way of it, then they're getting parked. So instead they're acting more reserved. So you can manipulate the battlefield with just being able to impose these really big killy bricks all over the field, whether you're picking up the Mork with the units embarked in it, and then he's peeking over a building and shooting it, and then when they shoot at him, because he has the 5-up invuln, he's likely more likely to withstand anti-tank shots. If he does get popped, then all of the flash kits can disembark a little bit easier into an actual building and safely, unlike with the truck where it has to peek around the corner and utilize firing deck. So this list is a little bit more of its own kind of beast to handle, but it's a lot of fun, a lot of creativity here, and there's still a lot of ways that you can kind of adjust this to make it your way. So of course, like all the lists we show here, it's to really give you guys ideas, motivation to work towards other things, to not be so restricted on what's simply meta and being used. If you felt like there was a lot of tank busters on this and it really didn't make you that happy, it's okay. You can bring Ludas, you can try other units as well. But right now the meta is really, really heavy on elite infantry and anti-tank. So with that being said, let me take a shout out and look at some of the chats real quick, because we got 5 WAAAGH Tactic memberships gifted by Andrew Stone. Whoa, thank you. Get very generous of you. And of course, check out those members videos that we put out, and we'll be doing more members live streams, of course. So thank you, very generous if you get, love it, and hopefully you and I can get in touch soon and talk sometime about what you're playing, how much fun you're having. Let me look at some more questions here because we're getting good support from you guys, and hope you guys like those lists and they answered your questions. Help guide you guys in a couple different directions, whether you want to use knobs, use boys, use squad leader infiltration, use Titanic models, use wagons, use no trucks. I try to throw a little bit of everything in there to get you guys those org juices flowing. So let's see what you Kunnin lads come up with. Talk about Kunnin lads. We got Brandon with Kunnin Tactics. Stand up. Yeah. Whoa. And then Cabbage Media, big love from England. Whoa, what's up, Cabbage Media? Yeah, that's an odd name, but since you're from England, that makes more sense, Cabbage Man. Then we have our friend Rafi here. He says, a question: if I put the Beast Boss leading Mandos, can I put them in a kill rig as they would have inherent Beast Naga's keyword? Right? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so, but maybe. I don't think that's how that works. That's such a good question, though. I've actually never thought about that. I have to look at it. So let me look at it right now. But let me read the rest of the chats. That's such. So I'll look at that in a second. And what else you guys got to say real quick in the chat? Gaz in the chat. What's up, Jay Hugh? Whoa, what's up? Hopefully you guys are gonna participate in that Stampa paint competition. Is Tactical Cunning. What I'm trying to do is a unit of Storm Boy is really that crucial in a list. You don't have to bring Storm Boys. They're just useful to have at least one for a bunch of different assets. You can check that out on the how to use 3 units using wrong video is how I explained how to use Storm Boys. But if you don't feel like using them at all because you don't own them, they're fine. Just put some bikers on the list or something. So yeah. Let's see what else is going on here with chat. For else we're going in. So with that being said, one more thing I want to mention is we are going to keep breaking down the detachments as well. So be on the lookout for the rest of our detachments that we're going to be covering, because we're going to do every single orc detachment as it should be done. And of course, we're going to be looking into the rest of the new data sheets or codexes that are coming out. And also it says Beast Naga infantry models, by the way. So it says Beast Naga infantry models. That means you cannot put Beast Naga commandos with a beast boss in a kill rig. But that was a fun thing to say. So thank you. Put me on my toes to think about it. But I'm glad you asked, because I'm sure someone else would want to know that question too. So the answer is no, you cannot put squad leader mandos in a kill rig. But I do think kill rigs do have a place in this detachment as well, because you can take kill rigs and redeploy them as well, and they're a good amount of point cost there. And because you're playing with beast bosses already, maybe you don't have trucks, you can put kill rigs as an alternative and substitute them for points. So I'm really glad you asked that question, because I was meaning to mention that when I mentioned the double beast bosses in these lists and that archetype, that kill rigs still do have play. I do think that they can be suggested or substituted in, especially if you're using more cunning to redeploy them. So that was an excellent question. Thank you very much for that. You answered pretty much 3 questions in one. So thank you. That's why I like that we do this live. Dem some fancy lads. Yeah, that was this that you see on screen was our last paint competition winner. One of them with commandos that we did. So this month we have this next 2 months we have the Stampas. So be on the lookout for those as well, because we'll do those every month, and it helps some more support the community. Then we got Brenstone. He said, thanks for doing this. I'm new to 40K. I'm excited to play some orcs. My favorite models are Flash Kits and Gaz. Hey, are there any archetypes that allow me to play these? Yes. If you're saying in Tactical Brigade, Gaz actually does have a certain amount of play. If you take the Cunning mob detachment and you pull out one of those mobs packages and you bring Gaz in that case, boom, you have a good style right there where you can bring him. So because he wants big bricks of boys around him so he can be taking advantage of lethal for them, or he wants big bricks of Snagos around him so he can be taking advantage of lethal, or he can be around and you can remove the mech because he can give Zod orders on the turns that it's not time of the wall, or he can give them on the wall because he doesn't really care for anything other than reroll charges typically, so he might give his order to Zod anyways. So Gaz does have some kind of play, I would say, in the mob cunning archetype itself. But other than that, I would say, of course, you can run them in Warhorde. He's best. And flash kits are awesome in any detachment. So funny enough, I love those models a lot too. I'm a big gas fan. I'm a big flash kit fan. That's why I have 30 flash kits on my shelf right now. So yeah, totally love it. So with that being said, we hit the 30-minute mark. Hopefully you guys, I covered your questions that you guys needed covered. Those were some great questions. Thank you for that. That helped me kind of elaborate and extend some of those things for future gets that need to get stuck in. So with that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind is keep on the lookout for our paint competition, the rest of our detachment videos, the rest of these breakdowns, and our future to come after action reports where I'll be taking pictures of my games using lists that we're actually making here on the channel with our members and some of the polls we have coming out. So of course, be on the lookout for those and participate in that so you can see some of the off-wall units, combos, and tactics that I talk about being used to the best of my potential. So with that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.